About 2 years ago, I ran down my top 15 coasters. Not to talk about why they're so great, but to break them down by their stats. Today, I want to do the same thing, but this time I'm gonna flip my list over. These coasters are boring. They hurt. They just aren't good at their job of being roller coasters. Let's pick out only the active ones, and find out which one's the tallest, fastest, longest, best paced, and rank them up based on prime ride time. These are my 15 worst active coasters, by the numbers. If you're new to the series, prime ride time starts when the train picks up speed off the lift, and ends when it hits the final brakes. Mid-course brake runs are left in, but if they slow the train down too much, it'll extend the ride time but hurt the pacing. With the help of Google Maps and the Pythagorean theorem, I was able to take out the lift, station, and brakes from the overall length, so the number on your screen will not match the number on RCDB. Also, just remember, these are coasters that are still open today. On my original 15, I listed Pirates Hideaway at Casino Pier, a Wisdom Rides partially enclosed coaster. This thing is just so pointless and janky, but I could not find a single stat anywhere. No height, speed, length, nothing. So I chose to leave it off and give it an honorable mention here. In 15th place with 20 seconds is Corkscrew at Michigan's Adventure, an aero corkscrew. This is about as simple as it gets. It's a clone of the very first modern looping coaster. A drop, a turn, and 2 corkscrews, so no wonder it only takes 20 seconds to cover. It starts with a 62-foot drop, 11th place, 10th in speed at 46 miles an hour, but it is second to last in length at 636 feet. Its pacing doesn't feel that bad until the final turn. After the last corkscrew, it has to rise back up at the station, and at that point it really slows down. Still, at 31.8 feet per second, it's only 12th. I've ridden other coasters just like this, but this one likes to smash your head around. In 14th place with 21 seconds is Swiss Toboggan at Little America, a chance rides toboggan. If you take the roof off the car, it doesn't even make my list. Because it's enclosed, you can and will hit your head in the roof. You go up a 45-foot vertical lift, that's tied for last. I don't have an official speed on this, but I'm guessing around 25 miles an hour. That would also be last. And considering all you do is spiral down a tower and pop into a couple hills in one turn, there's no wonder it's last in length with only 347 feet. Just to complete the sweep, it's last in pacing at 16.5 feet per second. This gimmicky coaster doesn't do much aside from crush your spine, but I guess it's cool that you can hook it up to a back of a truck and move it anywhere you want. For its next stop, I suggest the dump. In 13th place with 22 seconds is Insane at Gornalund, an Intamin Zackspin. Green Lantern may be gone, but I rode its Swedish cousin and it also sucks. You have wing seating, 4 on one side and 4 on the other, rise up 108 feet, that's 4th place. But it doesn't have a real drop, it just dips and turns. One mid-course brake run slows the train down, but not as much as Green Lantern did. It only goes 34.2 miles an hour, 3rd to last, just over 700 feet of track, also 3rd to last. And its pacing is surprisingly decent, just ahead of Corkscrew in 11th place, 31.9 feet per second. This is boring and uncomfortable, not a good combination, not a good model. In 12th place with 35 seconds is Pegasus at Mount Olympus, a CCI wooden coaster. This is a family wooden coaster, starting off with a 45-foot drop. That's tied with Swiss Toboggan for last place. That only gets a train of 40 miles an hour, 11th place. And from there, it meanders around high off the ground, finally coming down into some decent airtime hills and a violent jolt back to the station. It has 1,368 feet of track, that's 10th. And the ending saves its pacing, 40.2 feet per second at 9th place. In fact, it hits the final brakes with a ton of speed. It could easily have gone on for a few hundred extra feet. This tries to keep it mild in some ways, being small scale, but ends up being one of the most violent wooden coasters out there. In 11th place with 35 seconds is Vortex at Heroins, a B&M stand-up. I was gonna spare Vortex, but once I realized Pirates Hideaway wasn't gonna work, I had to bring Vortex back in. This was one of B&M's first coasters opening in 1992, rising up 90 feet, tied for 6. Hits a top speed of 50 miles an hour, also tied for 6. Goes into 2 inversions and covers just over 1,600 feet of track, one spot ahead of Pegasus in 9th place. And this does a good job staying low and keeping its speed, right in the middle and pacing at 46.4 feet per second. It doesn't have an interesting layout. Plus, you're in the standing position, so in the end, it's not egregiously bad, but it's not that good. In 10th place with 36 seconds is Flight Deck at Canada's Wonderland, a Vekoma SLC. I could have put a bunch of SLCs on here, so I just chose one that's especially bad, and that's Flight Deck. Even though these run rough and bang your head, these are legit in terms of size. 109 feet tall, that's 3rd. 49.7 miles an hour, that's down in 9th. Though honestly, 1st place is only 6 miles an hour away. Everyone's really bunched up when it comes to speed. Flight Deck has 5 inversions spanning 1,752 feet of track. That's right in the middle in 8th place. And without a mid-course, it goes through its inversions fast. 4th place in pacing at 48.7 feet per second. In 9th place with 37 seconds is Time Warp at Canada's Wonderland, a Zamperla Volaire. Literally, right next door to Flight Deck, we have another miserable ride. This portable flying coaster that twists and jerks your head around, and really pinballs between the two ear pads. It has a 50-foot spiral lift, third to last, doesn't have a main drop, just winds back and forth. As it gets closer to the ground, its max speed is only 25.7 miles an hour, second to last. The prime ride track only spans 902 feet, 12th place. And given how it doesn't go that fast, nor can it given the type of ride it is, it's third to last in pacing, 24.4 feet per second. In 8th place with 38 seconds is Rollin' Thunder at Tropic Falls, a Zamperla Thunderbolt. On paper and in pictures, this looks great. 114.8 feet tall, that's second. A vertical drop in 4 inversions. A very skinny out and back layout with funky elements and airtime. I just don't like how it feels like you're in a shopping cart with 2 defective wheels. I guess that makes it a bad thing and this is tied for first in speed, 55.9 miles an hour, but right in the middle in length, just over 1,800 feet of track. It has good speed, but it also has very big elements in the first half. So altogether, it's 6th in pacing, just ahead of Vortex, 46.4 feet per second. In 7th place with 40 seconds is Firebird at Six Flags America, a B&M floorless. The original B&M, a stand-up, turned floors in 2019 to improve the experience, but from my ride, it's the only B&M that I've ridden that bangs your head. It's 90 feet tall, just like Vortex, both being early B&M stand-ups, that's tied for 6. But this goes 5 miles an hour faster, tied for 3rd place. It has a loop and a corkscrew, but has a much longer layout than Vortex, almost exactly 700 feet longer, 5th place at just over 2,300 feet. Because of that speed and its low to the ground second half, this tops the list in pacing, covering track at just over 58 feet per second. In 6th place with 51 seconds is Hurler at Heroins, an International Coasters wooden coaster. We can thank Paramount for this one. It's a full-size wooden coaster, but it runs rough and the elements are just flat out boring. It's 83 feet tall, that's down in 10th place, but hits 50 miles an hour, which is tied for 6, same as Vortex. It's a triple out and back coaster, full of drawn-out airtime hills that are incredibly flat, and long turns. In the end, covering almost 2,500 feet of track in 4th place. And because it doesn't rise up after the first drop, it has decent pacing at 48.6 feet per second. In 5th place with 53 seconds is Roar at Six Flags America, a GCI wooden coaster. One of GCI's early models. Last time I rode this, it lacked any force and it beat the hell out of me, so it's been at the bottom of my wooden coaster list for a long time. It starts with an 85-foot twisted drop, 9th place, 50.5 miles an hour, 5th place, into a twisted course with your occasional airtime hill that's too slow to have airtime. Roar covers over 2,800 feet of painful prime ride track, that's 2nd place, and it doesn't have any mid-course brakes so it keeps its speed pretty well, 3rd place in pacing at 53.5 feet per second. In 4th place with 54 seconds is Mighty Canadian Mindbuster at Canada's Wonderland, a Curtis D. Summers wooden coaster. The ride starts off promising, but after the first 2 hills, it just becomes a forceless jackhammer factory. It has the 87-foot drop to start, that's 8th and 2 feet better than Roar. At 55.9 miles an hour, it's tied with Rollin' Thunder for 1st place. And in the out and back layout, ending with a giant helix, no coaster on my bad list has more prime ride track, just shy of 3,000 feet. Aside from a slow turn halfway through, this stays low to the ground and keeps its speed, 2nd in pacing at 55.2 feet per second, 3 feet behind Firebird in the top spot. In 3rd place with 58 seconds is Anaconda at King's Dominion, an aero looper. Anaconda has its fans, and even though it starts strong, a 144-foot drop into an underwater tunnel, that's 1st place. But somehow, it only hits 50 miles an hour, that's tied for 6. It has 2 intense inversions, but once it hits that early mid-course brake run, the ride is garbage. The brakes sap the ride of all its speed, and most of its 6th place, 2,100 feet of track comes after that. So as it winds around those weird turns, it kills the pacing, 10th place and 36.3 feet per second. In 2nd place with 59 seconds is Coast Rider at Knott's, a Mock Rides Wild Mouse. Obviously, everyone hates the shin guards, but I also hate how slow the ride is. It's gotta be the most trim Wild Mouse I've ever ridden, and the pacing shows that. 18.3 feet per second is 2nd to last. Only Swiss Toboggan is worse. Just about every Wild Mouse coaster has bad pacing, but this one is extra painful. It starts with a good 52-foot drop before the ride dies, that's 12th place. And that drop gets it up at 37 miles an hour, also 12th. But the speed disappears as soon as it hits the first trim before the hairpin turns. It crawls through its 1,080 feet of track, 11th place, and aside from giving almost a minute of ride time, stat-wise, it's bottom tier across the board. In 1st place with 60 seconds is Grizzly at California's Great America, a wooden coaster that's better off as firewood. It's not even rough, it's just impossibly boring. It's hard to believe how boring it really is because it stands 91 feet tall, that's 5th. Hits 55 miles an hour, that's tied with Firebird at 3rd place. And it has a long double out and back layout, 2,500 feet of track in 3rd place. It's top tier in all categories except pacing, and that may be the reason I have a problem with it. It covers track at 41.8 feet per second, that's 8th place and just barely better than Pegasus. At the end of each episode, I like to throw all the ranks together to get an average overall rank. This spans across ride time, height, speed, length, and pacing. And when I rank it up like that, it's Mindbuster that ends up on top. An average rank of 3.2. Grizzly's in second. Firebird barely behind it. Roar and Rollin' Thunder tied at fourth. And as you go down the list, no surprise, the small and weird coasters bring up the rear. Pegasus, Time Warp, Corkscrew, and far and away at the very bottom, Swiss Toboggan. The only category where that wasn't last was ride time, and it was second to last. That's a wrap on my 15 worst active coasters, by the numbers. Let me know if anything here surprised you, or confirmed something you already knew. I'm surprised Anaconda only hits 50 miles an hour despite a 144-foot drop. I had to do a double take on that one. I also didn't expect Insane to have decent pacing. I mean, I thought it might be last, so that it only finished 11th was shocking. Better than Corkscrew, and not too far behind Anaconda. I'm sure it helps that the mid-course brake run isn't that harsh. I'm so used to looking at my Green Lantern footage and seeing the train stop at that point. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. I have a playlist with other by the numbers videos in this series. Also, check out my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you also happen to love baseball. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.